Hello everyone and welcome back. This is Jenny from Polly's Paper Studio, and I am so sorry to report that despite my being in denial, it is still winter. We still have snow, we still have cold, it's windy and very gloomy. I was very happy to receive a request from a Dear Polly's Peep for a baby greeting card, and I knew exactly what collection I wanted to work with. This is Swaddle from Authentique paper. It has so many beautiful pattern papers and great vintage images, and this card was a delight to create, as well as a nice distraction from the cold. So stick with me and we will make this together. Here's my card base. It is a 6x6 top fold card, and I have finished the inside already with coordinating pattern paper. I'll come back in later and add a portion where a sentiment can be added, and then I'm going to start layering on these patterned papers with the cardstock. So I chose a very light blush pink for my cardstock layer, and I will use that throughout for a nice consistent look. Now I'll add this to the top of my card base. I chose a darker pattern that is more condensed for the background, so when I cover it with the additional layers, you'll still be able to enjoy all of that pattern around the outside. So I'm going to bring in my next layer. This is my first raised section. I'm still using that cardstock, and I'm adding another geometric, this time in the form of a diagonal plaid, and that is going to be in contrast with the first layer. Instead of a dark with light on it, this one is light with dark. Now I've got my patterned paper that has those oh so adorable little children. I'm going to take advantage of the border paper that's already there and just add this right to the pattern paper. You see I did add a small piece of cardstock here to separate those busy paper patterns. I have a couple of trims that I want to add before I stick this in place. So this is just a pretty crocheted lace, and I put a layer of the double-sided adhesive tape. I don't expect this to hold it. I'm just going to tack it in place and then wrap it around, and the glue on the back will hold that securely behind all the foam. So you see, when I added the foam, I did notch out the portion where the bulk of that trim will be so that it will still lay flat. And I've got a second pattern here. Now this is a beautiful vintage trim that I got from the antique store. Has a little bit of a cream and pink with a bit of gold foil running through, so I thought that was very pretty. I'm just going to cover the top portion of that lace and stick that down very well so that it has a good contact, and wrap that around the back as well. And then I can add this to my card, so that's going to have a nice border of that dark pink all the way around. There's a layer here of the double-sided adhesive tape, and I'm going to include a second layer of wet adhesive. This is the Tombow Mono Multi. And I'll just add that right to the center. For my focal image, I chose this die that has a pretty scalloped edge. I believe it's from Spellbinders. I've had it in my stash for quite a while and I've lost track of the packaging, but I'm sure that at the time I did not realize there were many dies companies, so I really only bought from Spellbinders. I cut that from white cardstock, and then I came back in because I don't have a nested oval that will fit inside that shape. I just flipped over my die and was selective in positioning it over the pattern paper. When I had it where I thought that image looked very nice, I traced it with a pencil and then I clipped it out. So now I know that this oval is going to fit inside the shape of this die cut perfectly. And now I can add that instead of my typical doily layer, so it's just more of a fancier frame. I'm positioning this frame so that I am well above that trim on the bottom. because I want this layer to be flat. This layer I do want to be raised, so I've added more of the foam to the back of this as well. Before I add that next layer, I want to come in with this banner shape. This was part of the die cut sheet, and it does have an image on the back, but for this project I liked just having that smaller pink plaid, and I'm just gonna come in and attach that right here between the layers of the image and the frame. So this is a pretty image that is sort of a watercolor effect. It's nice and vintagey and softly colored, so it's perfect for baby cards. I've got a couple of flower arrangements. I picked a few of the coordinating colors from my Little Birdie Craft stash. These I had to switch out the center. The stamens were originally a bright yellow, which would be correct if you looked at this flower, but for this project I really wanted a brighter and softer look, so I used some double-headed stamens. These are the flat ones from Really Reasonable Ribbon in a white, so that works perfectly. And I layered that with some Handmade by Me flowers, and then here are a couple of glittery stars. I think those look extra festive for a baby card, and a little bit of die cut foliage. Here I've taken a white acrylic paint and added some detail just to soften the edge of that. And then here is a second smaller arrangement, and I will position these here so that it creates a nice balance. I've pulled a pretty charm from my stash. This is just a small fairy and a star, which I thought worked really well with that the star glitter die cuts. And I'm going to secure that before I add the flowers so that I can capture those strings underneath and they won't show. I've also got a small loopy bow here. This is a light pink wrinkle ribbon, and I'm just going to hold it in place while I add my adhesive, and then I'll press it on to the card here and hold it so that it will have the shape that I want when I have the adhesive stuck down. So here is the arrangement for the top of the card. Here's another piece from that die cut sheet. It says Made with Love, has a very cute little heart detail. I've added a glitter star here and a small clip. That's a Tim Holtz Idea-ology clip, and this sentiment is just going on the bottom of the image. Now I have added some spacers. These are the scrapbook adhesives from Really Reasonable Ribbon, and it is only about half the thickness of regular foam adhesive, so it will add some dimension but not as much bulk. Now I'm gonna put that here so that I'm being careful not to cover that sweet baby image, and it will be a nice layer with that metal charm. I've got one more bow to add here, and I'm just placing it at the bottom corner of the larger arrangement, and that will help to balance out those two florals. I've added that before the flower so that I know I'll get the correct placement. And here are the larger florals, and I'm going to add that again with hot glue. Last but not least, I have a few vintage buttons tied with string, and I'm just going to attach those right over top of that vintage trim. And that is all for my vintage inspired baby card created with the Swaddle collection from Authentique paper. I hope I've inspired you to get some extra use out of your shaped dies as I did today with this frame die. And I would love to hear from you all if you also enjoy creating projects for new babies, whether it is decor or cards. Just let me know in the comments. I will leave a link in the description below for this collection, as well as Really Reasonable Ribbon for the trims and for all our social media sites. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give me a like, leave me a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. As always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye!